Not literally, symbolically. How's it going? Oh, it's going great. Everything is awesome. Do you have a sense that there's a few students at Worland High School who say everything is great? That if you really sat down with them and talked with them, they would come right out and say it. Yeah, I'm not very happy right now. My life is not very good. Why do we hide? This is the point that Father Hooper's making. Why do we hide from the people we love, who we really are? Why can't we live showing people who we really are, what we really care about? In a word, fear. The same fear people felt when they saw this black veil. The other implication of the story back at 2a for messages now is quite simply this. There is a need for some compassion or understanding when we are dealing with people. We have a tendency when somebody acts in a certain way to immediately jump to conclusions about those people, right? And what they've done and what they've said. Sometimes it makes sense to maybe ask this question: what have they gone through? What are their challenges? And that maybe is why they're acting the way they act. In other words, have a little bit of compassion. At the very end of his life, Hooper is surprised that people feared him, maybe kind of respected him, but never loved him for wearing this. In other words, it was a challenge for him to spend the rest of his life like this, and nobody could appreciate that. And he's still kind of surprised. Nobody could understand that the wearing of the black veil was a message, was a symbol to be sent to people, and they never could see it. They couldn't get past the piece of cloth, he says. And that's kind of sad, he says. You never got it. You never could quite figure it out. Now to finish. The story, of course, is in itself going to raise some interesting questions about plot, and more particularly, as we put on our whiteboard, conflict. So let's jot it down at 2b really quickly. What is, in your estimation, the central struggle or conflict of this story? For example, do you see it as an internal conflict? Father Hooper against himself. Do we ever know actually why he put this on? We don't. Do we ever know why he took the vow to put it on? We don't. We don't know any of that for sure. There is clearly a conflict there. Do you see this as a story whose primary conflict is character versus another character? Father Hooper versus against, for example, the parishioners, or Father Hooper against his girl when she asks him take it off? Do you see this as character versus nature and the forces of nature? Some might say yes if you want to say human nature. Right? And then the idea of character versus society. Some of you will write that one down as the primary conflict. Clearly, this is Father Hooper trying to make a point to the group of the town, and they just can't understand at all. Nobody can understand this person. He is a man apart from men. Let's jump now to the question of climax. What for you is the climax of the story? For many readers, it is when his girl says, take this off. If he's going to do it for anybody, he's going to do it for her. And he says, no. Other readers will say the real climax of the story comes at the end of the story because we want to know what happens when he finally gets to the end of his life. Will he, for example, make some grand proclamation? The reason why I took the vow is I did something really terrible and I'm paying for it in my life as well as in my life. What will happen? No, he doesn't make any confessions like that. Instead, he dies in his last words making a point about why he wore the black veil to the people who his whole life had made fun of him for wearing the black veil. You also are hiding behind a black veil. It's just not obvious the way mine is. And then he dies. Notice that the conclusion of this story is also its climax, if that's how you read the story, right? So there isn't much for resolution or falling action, other than we're told he's buried in the grave with the veil over his face, and his face will turn to dirt behind the veil. Now to level 3. Let's spend a little time now in conclusion asking about how you can relate to a text like this. Let's begin at 3a by thinking about titles and texts that you are aware of, that you are familiar with. For example, I'll help you out. What for you is the movie or the TV show that you like best about an individual who is misunderstood and made fun of, maybe even we might say bullied, but nobody really understands the backstory. Nobody really understands the struggle. Do you have a film or a movie like this? What is your favorite song that tells you, stand up and be your own person? Don't be like everyone else. Is there a song that you like that you can write down that for you works at that level? What is for you your favorite show, movie, whatever, about a character who tries to change people and fails in the end? People don't understand. Or maybe in the end he is successful and he tries to help people out and he is successful. And finally people go, oh, I totally get it. It makes sense to me now. What is for you the movie or text that you like best, where in the very last part of the movie, the hero of the movie speaks words and then dies? Do you have a film that you've ever seen like that, where the last words are spoken and then dies, and that's the end of the show? That's it. And everybody kind of walks out going, oh, that was kind of like we watched the whole movie just to get to that moment when the guy speaks or the gal speaks. What was that like for you in that show? And now finally 3B. Let's try to relate this to ourselves personally. A simple question, a couple of them, that maybe you jot down and think about, right? In your estimation, do you think it's true that we hide behind a veil? Is it possible to be completely honest, do you think? We like to sometimes ask in junior English, don't we, this question: what would it be like to have Truth Day at Warland High? Every single person had to speak the truth all day long. Are you ready for this? Including teachers. Whoa! What would that be like? For those of you who say, you know what? That would be a scary day. Because if people in this building all told the truth, there would be lots of hurt feelings. There would be lots of upset people. If, however, you're one of those people that say Truth Day at Warland High School is a bad idea, think about what you're saying about our lives as we live them together. Are you saying that everyone lies to everyone? Could we live in a world where everyone told the truth? What would that be like? Would going and telling somebody the truth kind of be like putting a veil over your face where you don't explain why? People would want to know, why are you telling this now? Why are you being so honest now? Another question. Do you think it's hard to be truthful with yourself? Why do you think it is so hard sometimes to admit weaknesses to yourself? Why do you think it's so hard to accept yourself for who you are? Why do you think that is so difficult? Finally, can you recollect a time in your life that you treated someone unkindly, you gossiped about them, you spoke about them, and then found out later, oh, dude, I was totally wrong. That person did or said something, and I completely misunderstood. What is in your life, 3B question, what is in your life your biggest, oh, I screwed it up moment with another person? Where you said something about them, did something. I once had a student, and she confided in class that this happened in middle school. She said, we were best friends, and I thought she said something about me, and immediately we had this huge fight. She didn't talk back when I accused her. She just was silent. And I accepted her silence as proof she did it. And for 3 years, she said, we didn't talk to each other. Wouldn't look each other in the face in school. I was so mad at her for what she had said, and she never said a word to me. I was mean to her. I turned all of our friends against her. I said mean things about her. And then, in the summer before my junior year, we ended up having to have a conversation. And I just called her out. And she said, "Let me explain what happened." And she said, as she started to talk, I began to cry because I realized, oh, no. And her first, "Why didn't you tell me?" And her friend said back to her, "I wanted to believe that if we were true friends, you would accept me no matter what. So I just waited." This story fits rather nicely with a story like that, doesn't it? It says, sometimes we judge people and we don't have all the information. Sometimes we don't understand everything. A student once saying, "This happened to me. One morning a teacher yelled at me and I got so mad at him and I yelled back and I got in lots of trouble. But then I found out later that day that the day before, someone he loved very much had died. And the teacher was really upset about that. And so in the morning was emotional because the teacher hadn't slept the whole night before. And I kind of popped off, and the teacher then was really upset at me. But I come to find out it didn't have anything to do with me. It had to do with the fact that he had lost someone he truly loved in death, really tragically. And so there's a backstory. Plato said it this way. Let's finish. You might want to write this line down. And sometimes people, my students, have actually written this line down and put it somewhere where they can see it. Like in their locker, or next to their bed, or on their bathroom mirror. It runs like this. It's a good line. You might want to write it down. Plato, the great philosopher, said, "Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a battle." Whoa, what an interesting line. I'll say it again. You may want to write it down on a blank sheet of paper and remind yourself the next time you're ready to jack somebody up because somebody's been mean to you. Plato says, be kind to everyone you meet. For everyone you meet is fighting a battle. Very interesting. Thank you, Hawthorne, for introducing to us the classic understanding, the minister's black veil. Thank you.